wait for everyone to get seated. I'm very pleased to bring this meeting to order on behalf of Mayor Deb Haswell, who's on holiday, and it's nice to see so many people there out for the public meeting. So a declaration to move to the regular meeting. We did that in camera? Okay. So I move on to the faith blessing or moment of silent reflection. Thank you, Pastor Brian Drysdale.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for this opportunity to pray the faith blessing tonight. Let us pray. Father, I thank you for the nation of Canada and for Owen Sound, the city in which we live. We deeply care about this city, the place we call home, and we know that you care about it as well, O Lord. So I ask that you would bless those in authority over this city, bless Mayor Haswell and the members of the council with eyes to see every issue clearly. Bless their ears to hear and understand each concern brought forward. Bless their mouths to honor and respect others, and bless them with the wisdom to discern the best solution. I thank you, O Lord, for our mayor and the members of council as they continue to strive to make Owen Sound a place where we can all enjoy freedom, security, and peace. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Are there any additional items this evening? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I have an issue with respect to the rivers in Harrison Park.
Any other additional items? Yes, Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. I have two items I wish to raise. One is public meeting next Wednesday regarding the transit system and recommendations that may come forward. And the second is to talk about a process that we might begin to develop some policies around public art and finding ways to create some funds to pay for it.
Thank you. Any other additional items? Councillor Lemon?
Yes, I have two items, one pertaining to OSAM, and then two parts to that, and the second has to do with compliance with the Ontarians with Disabilities Act regulations.
Any other items? Yes.
I will be asking for a recommendation to come forward regarding the Street and the Attorney General.
Thank you. And I have one item in regards to the Welcoming Communities Forum. So are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Yes, Councillor Adair.
Yes, I have one in regards to the public meeting as it pertains to an arrangement with my employer.
Yes. Thank you. Any other disclosures of pecuniary interest? Thank you. So could I have the confirmation of the minutes from April 22nd?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright, that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held on April 22, 2013, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That's carried. And a resolution moving council into committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright, that City Council now go into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
All in favor? That's carried. So we have a public meeting. We're now moving into, well, we need a motion to adjourn the council meeting before we go into the public meeting. Thank you, Councillor McManaman. All in favor? Thank you. So the public meeting is now open. And this is in regards to zoning bylaw amendment number 9. And we'll have a presentation. Oh, I have to read that. Can you give me a copy of that? Oh, here we are. Is that, I'm just checking with the clerk. That's this. All right. So I have to read a rather lengthy announcement for the public meeting. If a person or a public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound to the Ontario Municipal Board. If a person or a public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to the City Clerk, Kristen Van Alphen. So now I will ask our Director of Community Services, Pam Coulter, to provide comments.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship, members of Council, and members of the public. 1876965 Ontario Incorporated, represented by Mr. Ron Peary, has submitted an application for rezoning under Section 34 of the Planning Act. The rezoning is intended to permit the redevelopment of buildings and land known really formally as the former Todd's building and the former Thompson Furniture buildings for a 24 to 29 unit residential condominium with a small amount of commercial space and parking on the main floor. So this is an aerial view of the subject property. I wonder if we could just turn the lights down above the screen. Thank you. So the lands subject to the rezoning are really comprised of 3 parcels. The Todd's building here with frontage on 9th Street, and then the former Thompson Furniture buildings with frontage on 1st Avenue East. Together, the property has 35 meters of frontage on 9th Street, 55 meters of frontage on 1st Avenue, with an area of 1,523 square meters, about 0.4 of an acre. The west side of the subject property abuts the Sydenham River and then 1st Avenue West, with commercial development fronting on to 1st Avenue West. To the north, we have some vacant lands. Some of it is used for parking in association with the buildings on 2nd, and then we have Jean Francis Art Studio further north on 10th Street. To the east, we have 1st Avenue East in the rear of the commercial buildings fronting on 2nd Avenue. And then to the south, we have the Sydenham River City Parkland commercial uses, including Tim Hortons and the Royal Bank. I would note that the city has, as a conditional, or has authorized the application by Mr. Peary on lands at 60 to 80 9th Street East that are subject to a conditional offer or agreement of purchase and sale. Just a few photos of the existing structures. Here we are standing on 9th Street, south of the property, looking at the front face on 9th Street. Here we're across the river on 1st Avenue West, looking at the west side of the building, so we can see the Todd's building here, and then the former Thompson Furniture building. Now we're over on 1st Avenue East, so the Todd structure is here, and then there's a 1-story structure and then a 2-story component. In terms of the process to date, during last summer and fall, we undertook a mandatory pre-consultation with the developer, and based on that, we have received an application and a number of supporting studies. I would note for members of the public that all of those studies are available on the city's website, or certainly for viewing at City Hall if you don't have access to the internet. Notice of a complete application and public meeting was given on April 9th. At Council's last meeting, you received a technical report. Really, that provided the policy framework in which you would consider the application as well as the public comment. And today, here we are, May 6th. The focus of today is to hear public comment on the proposed application. In terms of the official plan, the subject property is designated downtown commercial and hazard. The downtown commercial designation is certainly intended to provide a full range of commercial, institutional, recreational, and residential uses. The permitted uses include a broad range of commercial, and where we talk about non-commercial, the official plan contemplates medium and high-density housing for the downtown area. The technical report prepared by city staff, as well as that submitted with the application by Cuesta Planning Consultants, provide a detailed review of the official plan policies in which the application should be considered. The official plan for the City of Owen Sound certainly promotes intensification and redevelopment and contemplates medium and high-density residential outdoor living space in rooftop gardens, patios, and balconies. The official plan promotes the reuse of sites in accordance with the Environmental Protection Act. In terms of the hazard designation that's associated with the river and the bank of the Sydenham River, the proposal does, in the areas outlined in yellow or orange on the screen, propose a small encroachment of the existing footprint further into that area, and certainly a number of the studies have addressed that. We're proposing, with the comments from Grace Sobel, to use a holding provision in order to ensure the structural, hydrostatic, and geotechnical information is complete on which we would issue building permits moving forward with the project. The existing zoning, the property is zoned C1, subject to special provision 1484. It's the property to the south that's subject to 1485. The C1 zone runs right along the edge of the properties and then, along the buildings, with the area to the west along the river in the hazard zone. The C1 zone permits a range of commercial uses as well as residential uses in combination with those residential uses. So again, the site plan, and on our left-hand side, north is facing right here. On the left-hand side is 9th Street, and here we have First Avenue. So what's proposed is a small area of commercial on the, this is a main floor plan, a small area of commercial. We would have parking on the remainder of the first floor. There is then cantilevered balconies looking out to the west along the Sydenham River, a balcony and steps and a boat dock area adjacent or on the banks of the Sydenham. On First Avenue East, you'll see as we go that there is entrance and egress from the parking area. The traffic study submitted with the application requests two-way traffic on a portion of First Avenue East that's currently one-way traffic, and staff are proposing that we would deal with that detail at the time of site plan approval. So in terms of the proposed amendments, at the time of the application, there was really no commercial on the main floor. So, and the merger of the properties, so there's different properties being merged together. So essentially what happens is they lose their legal non-conforming status in terms of setbacks. So many of the setbacks exist, but require relief. So that includes the front yard, the rear yard, and exterior side yard, as well as the interior side yard. The proposal proposes to go from 12-meter maximum height to 23 meters. The floor space index is well within that maximum and doesn't require relief. Required is 18 parking spaces, and you'll see that our provided is 35. In addition, the special provision that we talked about, 1484, requires that a percentage of the ground floor area be commercial. 55% of the ground floors can be designated to non-residential uses. The application doesn't quite meet that, so an exemption is required there. And then, as mentioned, a change in a portion of the hazard zone on the west side to allow the slight enlargement of the building on that side. So some elevations, here we are, we're standing on 9th Street. You'll see the height of 2 of the Todd's building here, 3 stories above that, and then step back, the 6th story would be stepped back from 9th Street and shown there. Now we're standing on the east side or along the laneway. The corner is here. This area is fronting on 9th, so here we are on 1st Avenue. We have entrance and egress from the parking, the balcony with the rooftop gardens, as well as the balconies here looking to the north. And here again, the west elevation, so now we're standing on 1st Avenue looking west, looking across the river towards the west face of the building. You'll see the stairs coming down to the proposed area where there would be a small dock for kayaks and canoes. So in terms of process and next steps, the public meeting today, certainly we look forward to hearing from the public with respect to the application. Following tonight, we'll be compiling that public input and bringing back to council a report based on the information we've heard, as well as the input that we receive through public and agency comments.
Thank you, Ms. Coulter. So we'll have comments from the city clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Purdon. I'd like to advise council that the notice was circulated to the prescribed bodies and posted in the Sun-Times on April 12th, 2013, and a media release respecting the location of tonight's public meeting was posted on the city's website on April 15th. Written comments that have been received have been included on the council meeting agenda and made available to council and the media and the public. And since that has been published, no further comments have been received.
Thank you very much. So now we will have comments from the public, and I'd ask you, please, when you come to make your comments, to state your name and address for the record, and we're looking forward to hearing the public content. Yes.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship. Let me just see if I can get this set up here. Well, by way of introduction, my name is Brandon Ward. I'm with Quest Planning Consultants. Our firm was retained by the applicant, Mr. Peary, to undertake the planning analysis of this proposal. And in turn, we've submitted the accompanying planning report with the zoning amendment application. I'm here as well with, of course, the applicant, Mr. Peary. He's here, as well as the project architect, Mr. Monty King, and the engineer that's done a lot of the evaluation of the floodplain analysis, Mr. John Slocum. Not quite sure how to, oh, I think we got it, okay. Okay. So I intended tonight just to make a very brief presentation discussing the context of the site and its relationship with surrounding land uses, as well as get into some detail about the specific attributes of the proposal, and discuss the relationship of the proposed building with the downtown community, and then finally a bit of summative review of the planning policy conformity. But fortunately, the presentation, or Pam's presentation, stole a bit of my thunder in regard to the review of the subject site. So I think I'll just jump right into the discussion on the proposal. So essentially, as you're all quite familiar, this proposal involves the redevelopment of the existing buildings into a 6-story residential condominium building. It's basically going to take place through an addition of 4 stories on the existing building. The existing building, that would be the, I believe it's the Tremble building, or the former Todd's building, is not going to be demolished entirely. It's going to be basically maintained and built upon from there. It's proposed to be approximately 24 to 31 residential units, and that will be finalized as we move forward with the plan of condominium application. The ground floor level will consist, of course, of the main entrance, the pedestrian entrance on 9th Street East, as well as the lobby and foyer area, and this limited commercial space that was alluded to in the earlier report. The remaining ground floor area will provide the covered parking for up to 35 vehicles, 2 of which will be barrier-free spaces, as well as a bicycle parking area. Green roof areas are also proposed for those areas of the building that where it's sort of step back as you move upon the increasing stories. Here's a perspective elevation of the proposed building. If you can see that, it's a little bright in here, but it articulately shows the relationship of the proposed building relative to the former Grey Bruce Health Unit building at the corner of First Ave West and 9th Street East across the river. And it gives a bit of a sense of scale of the height relative to the surrounding streetscape environment. As was noted in the earlier report, that top floor is stepped back from the street front building facades, which provides for an appropriate scaling effect of the building relative to the streetscape. Okay, so here's the ground level plan. Some of this has changed as we've gone through the submission and review process. As you can see here, the 35 parking spaces as well as the, let's see if I can, the entrance here, the foyer area. This will be generally where the proposed commercial use will preside, as well as the ground level. This will be a cantilevered patio with stairs below to a flagstone patio and removable dock access feature. Here's the second level plan. Now the layout of these dwelling units may change, as I mentioned earlier, as we move through the condominium application process. It's anticipated that these units will be around 1,200 to 1,500 square feet in area. Again, this is subject to change at this point. Here's levels 3 to 5, and as you can see, as we step back from the ground level, this is the green roof area, as well as this green roof area with the second story. And these are covered patios, and the units facing the river will be equipped with a cantilevered balcony feature to allow for a nice view over the river. Some of the amenities proposed in this facility includes, as I mentioned, the covered outdoor patio areas, the direct access to the Sydenham River through the walkway and removable dock feature. The basement level, which will, of course, preside in the existing Trimble building or former Todd's building, will include independent storage units for all the unit residences, common room, media party room, as well as an exercise room. So there's many common element features in this proposal. As we've looked at the design of this proposal, we've considered a number of design features in terms of the relationship with the existing built environment. And one of the earlier studies undertaken in considering this proposal was a marketing study. And basically, the marketing study conducted a survey of local residents in the area and outlying community. And it was determined that about 38% of respondents indicated an interest in purchasing a unit. The study concluded that there is, of course, a strong demand for a condominium housing format within this downtown area. And as you can probably surmise, the proposal appeals strongly to young professionals as well as those retirement age residents looking to perhaps downsize in a downtown location of this nature where access to amenities and services is highly feasible. Some respondents, worthwhile mentioning, expressed some concern with the somewhat unappealing streetscape appearance of First Avenue East. This proposal, of course, will help enhance that streetscape appearance in the vicinity of the First Ave East and 9th Street East intersection. Many respondents, of course, indicated that they feel that the downtown riverfront area has unrealized potential. I think that's something that everybody in this room can attest to, and certainly nothing earth-shattering in that regard. So when we look at this proposal in terms of how will this relate to the downtown community, Essentially, it's going to provide an attractive housing format for the downtown area. That goes without question. And in turn, it's going to enhance the Sydenham riverfront area compared to that which exists today. By facilitating an influx of residents to the downtown area, you're basically going to enhance the vibrancy of activity in the downtown, basically making it more of a complete downtown that is a 24/7 level of activity. If you have a downtown, of course, that is dominated by commercial, institutional uses, albeit with some perhaps nightlife uses, you generally see most of your activity occur in downtown in terms of vibrancy and interaction on a, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type window. By adding residents into your downtown area to mix appropriately with those commercial uses, you're enhancing the level of activity. So it's desirable from a planning perspective. Now, the potential impacts of this proposed 4-story addition in regard to the surrounding built environment was something that has been considered quite extensively in the design and formulation of this proposal. The total building height proposed is approximately 6 stories, or 22.21 meters in height. It will be among some of the taller buildings in the downtown core area. The design, of course, has given consideration to potential impacts on the streetscape, as well as scale and massing impacts in relation to existing buildings in the surrounding area. A shadowing study has been prepared to look at solar and shadow effects associated with the proposed increase in building height. The conclusion of this study is that it will not adversely affect the recreation or amenity areas to the south of the property, as well as surrounding lands, especially during the summer period. So the map that's up in front of you is basically illustrating the results of a building height survey we undertook for the downtown core area. The buildings highlighted in green are those buildings that are about 2.5 to 3 stories in height, 9 to 12 meters. The buildings in blue are slightly taller. They're a little greater than 3 stories and just under 4 stories in height. And then the buildings in red are greater than 4 stories. And as you can see, the buildings in red are sort of situated around the periphery of this sort of downtown spine that is 2nd Avenue East. There are a few blue buildings that are, a little over 3 stories. But generally, they are all oriented around this periphery here. And now the Sydenham is over here, of course. It is in keeping with that sort of trend of having these buildings not, of course, right on the 2nd Avenue East strip. There's the Grey Bruce Health Unit, or former Health Unit building here. I believe that's 3.5 stories in height, and same with the commercial building at the corner of 2nd Ave East and 9th Street East. So it's not isolated in terms of its height. There are similar buildings of similar height in close proximity. The perspective that I alluded to earlier, I think, adequately shows the proportional sense of height difference, especially between the proposed Sydenham condominiums and the health unit building. So here's the plan showing the shadow study and the angle of the sun. This is for the period of I think it's those fall and spring equinox of March 21st and September 21st. That's essentially going to be the most extensive. The shadow will preside over the surrounding lands. It's plan showing, demonstrating the summer period, the June 21st period. The shadow basically is over the existing walkway, so it's pretty minimal from shadow impact. Now, in terms of ensuring architectural compatibility with surrounding buildings and the surrounding streetscape, the design is going to be basically maintaining that which exists today in terms of architectural character. All the brick from the existing building, will be salvaged and reused in the exterior as well as interior construction. Any new additional brick will be brought in to replicate that which exists. The existing timber from the frame and from the existing roof frame and the floors will be carefully salvaged through reconstruction for reuse in various landscape features. Now, interesting to note that a recent poll was conducted in the Sun-Times. It's their daily reader poll regarding this proposal. And the question that was asked was, is a 6-story condominium a good fit for Owen Sound's downtown core? Of the respondents, 72% indicated yes, 42% indicated no, and 4% just weren't too sure about it, I guess. Now we look at the policy conformity of this proposal. One of the first levels, of course, is the provincial policy statement. Now, the Planning Act, as you're aware, requires that all decisions of a council or a planning board that affect the planning matter shall be consistent with policy statements issued under the Act. Now, of course, the proposal involves intensification and redevelopment of an existing building where access to public service facilities is apparent and available infrastructure will be efficiently utilized. This is one of the main tenets of the provincial policy statement. It's generally encouraging intensification forms of development in a downtown, or not necessarily downtown, but in the built environment where services and amenities are apparent. This will also provide a form of housing that meets the projected requirements of future and as well as current residents. So it's a housing option that's being introduced that's well in demand and is desirable for existing and future residents. Now, some of the engineering reports that have been prepared with this proposal have looked at the potential impacts associated with the existing hazard features related to the Sydenham River. They've sufficiently demonstrated that the Sydenham River and associated flooding, erosion, and scouring impacts attributable to the river will not adversely impact the proposed structure. With regard to servicing, an evaluation was undertaken to determine whether or not the existing servicing levels are appropriate to facilitate the proposal, and they've demonstrated that there is adequate servicing infrastructure available to accommodate the proposed redevelopment. County official plan basically provides that more refined instillment of provincial policy and basically echoes those sentiments in the sense that it directs your growth and development towards primary settlements, which City of Owen Sound is, of course, a primary settlement area in the eyes of the county official plan. The building is consistent with the existing built form and physical environment, and again, the technical reports submitted with the zoning bylaw application have demonstrated that the redevelopment will not be impacted by the Sydenham River hazard lands. The City of Owen Sound official plan, as was mentioned earlier, designates the subject property as downtown commercial, as well as the hazard lands attributable to the Sydenham River. The proposal is consistent with the official plan because of the following. First and foremost, the residential condominium is a high-density residential use permitted within the downtown commercial designation. As I mentioned earlier, the influx of new residents to the downtown will help enhance the downtown retail community. It consists of redeveloping a vacated and underutilized site within the periphery of these retail uses along 9th Street East. And it also proposes various outdoor living areas and amenity features, including the covered balconies, the cantilever patios, and the riverfront dock feature, which is to be encouraged in the city official plan for residential uses of this nature. Again, it's been architecturally designed to reuse existing building materials and maintain consistency with the existing heritage character of the area. It does not exceed 8 stories in height. This is an important provision in the official plan that states that buildings should be at a maximum of 8 stories in the downtown area. Buildings over 4 stories would necessitate an amendment to the bylaw, which is, of course, one of the reasons why we are here this evening. Again, one of the policies of the official plan is to ensure that there will be no adverse shadowing or solar impacts associated with the redevelopment, and the proposal achieves this objective. The scope traffic impact study has demonstrated that the road network in the vicinity of the site can adequately accommodate the proposed redevelopment and additional traffic that may be introduced from this proposal. And existing infrastructure is sufficient to accommodate the proposed redevelopment. So in summary, the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, as well as the City of Owen Sound official plan. The proposal, of course, will add an attractive, high-density housing option to the downtown area through the appropriate redevelopment and intensification of this abandoned site. The condominium redevelopment is complementary to surrounding land uses by means of enhancement of the downtown commercial and retail environment, and is compatible with the built form character of the nearby downtown community. And finally, of course, the influx of residents to the downtown core will contribute to that 24/7 level of activity within the downtown. So essentially, you won't have this potential ghost environment that you may have with a downtown that's dominated by commercial or institutional uses. So that concludes my presentation. Be happy to field any questions specific to this.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council?
Okay. Thank you for your time.
So, any other comments from the public? Yes?
Good evening.
You could just give us your name?
Sure. My name is Robert Fowler. I live on 3rd Street East, as a gentleman over here would know. He would vouch for me. I'm new to the city. I like the city. The proposal that I'm seeing is well presented. I do believe, yes, it would add to the city. However, I do have some concerns, okay? My primary concern is the scale of the project. Okay, it casts a very large footprint on a downtown area. Okay. Secondarily, I think I overheard something about a proposal to make that little side street two-way. As you are all aware, 10th Street is a pretty busy building, busy street. Okay, there's always a lot of congestion on 10th Street. If that thing is made two-way, I think it's a very, very narrow entrance. Okay. It would compound the traffic situation. I believe also, I am not a biologist or whatever the term is, but I'm willing to bet that it will impact the life in the river. Okay, I suspect it will have an impact on the salmon run, which is an important part of this city. And finally, I think the height of the building, particularly in the winter, this is the first winter I've spent up here, and I've never seen so much snow in my life. I believe the height of the building will severely influence the movement of snow and wind around that area. I would say if it was a little smaller, I would not raise any of those objections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Yes?
Hi, my name is Martin Cooper. I live on 8th Street. I think it looks like a good project, but I'm curious because I've been to Design Charrette for the design of the harbor and also the section of the waterfront between 8th Street and, well, 9th Street. along the river banks anyway, and I was wondering if this proposal has, if there's been any work to integrate this plan with the talk of walks and use of the riverbank areas, because this building seems to be concentrated only on its own footprint, and there's plans that go all up and down that riverbank, and has anybody given any time to that? Because I have given time to other meetings, and, what happens to it?
Thank you. I could maybe ask staff if there's any comments that you'd like to make.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, Mr. Peary and his development team, certainly also with you, Mr. Cooper, participated in those public meetings and had an interest in that riverfront precinct design study. In fact, he was a partner with the city in doing that work. So I would say yes. The plan is to continue to integrate the work that we're doing along the river with any development, and that would be an important part, making sure that the development is integrated and provides for consistency with that master plan.
Thank you. Yes.
But if I could just clarify one of the comments from the gentleman that was up here before regarding the two-way street alignment for First Avenue East. It's only to be two-way traffic up to the northern limit of the subject site. It's not going to be two-way traffic through the whole extent of that block of First Avenue East. So it's only, again.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other members of the public? Yes.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Thomas, and I live at 848 2nd Avenue East, which is a property that actually goes from 2nd Avenue to First Avenue, so my front yard is affected by this, and I did receive the stuff from the city clerk, so thank you. I think the building itself is very exciting. I think that the commitment that is being suggested to invest in our downtown is hugely exciting. I think lots of things about this building are great, and I'm assuming everything that I think is not so great will be handled competently by city staff and the developers. My concern is also around the street. From my property, I go on to First Avenue East in the middle of the 800 block, and I think as everybody here knows that there's chunks of every day where I cannot go north because that street is blocked in both directions by a certain business at the corner of First Avenue East and 9th Street. It's very frustrating for me because I can only go south at that point. I literally can't go north. And what you're talking about is adding 35 more cars into what I see as already a problematic intersection. You're not talking, and of course it's not this developer's responsibility to figure out the problem that already exists, but my feeling is that you're layering onto it more of a problem. So I'm curious to know what the plan is to somehow make this better. I think it's unfair that I can't use, First Avenue East going north anyway for chunks of the day, and if you're talking about adding another 35 cars in and out on, when you get north of 9th Street there, then I think you're creating real problems, and I don't know that anybody has addressed this. I've heard rumors that First Avenue East for the 800 block will be made one way. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that to me would create problems, and making it two-way even for a portion north of 9th Street, and I'm sorry if I don't have my directions right, but I think you know where I mean, is going to create additional problems, particularly for those of us who live already in this area. But the project itself is very exciting, and I hope that we can find a way to solve some of the concerns that have been expressed, because I think they're all quite legitimate concerns.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Hi, my name is Bea Miller, and I live on 3rd Street East. and we have a business on 2nd Avenue East in the 900 block. And I didn't really come here tonight prepared to speak, but I think this whole project is very positive for the downtown. I can't see any problems that couldn't be resolved. I really hope it happens. The residential thing downtown is awesome, and from the view of a business person, we need people downtown, and this looks fantastic.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Yes?
My name is Michael Warren. I'll be uncharacteristically quiet or brief tonight. I just want to remind council that one of the most important economic development attractions of any city is a vibrant downtown. And we have a downtown that's attractive, but it needs and can use additional presence. It can use a greater mixed use of the downtown. It can use a greater support of retail and commercial. And this project can stimulate the downtown economy. It can bring, I think, a more effective use of the existing infrastructure that the city provides. And this type of project doesn't come around very often. I think we're very fortunate to have a developer that's come to this community, sees the potential, the untapped potential of the downtown, and is willing to step up and make a major investment in a project that I think has the potential to be a game changer in the center of this city. So I just want to remind council that these opportunities don't come to us very often, and I think this one is one that can make tremendous change in the center core of our city, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Questions from council? Well, thank you everyone for your comments and for attending this public meeting. I'm going to declare the public meeting closed. I'll ask the clerk if there's something I'm supposed to read before I do that.
Just a motion to reconvene the council.
Okay, I'll need a motion. Thank you. Oh, yes, is this a question?
Yes, I did have one more question, or one question. Thank you. When will this matter be coming back to council for consideration?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the councillor, staff will need to sort of hear the input tonight, understand what that means in the context of the information that we have from the applicant, and prepare a report back to council. As you know, our timelines in advance of meetings are sort of, backed up in terms of when you get the agenda and when reports need to be ready. So it will come back, I won't promise at the end of May, but hopefully, if not the end of May, sometime in June. So certainly always those reports are available on the city's website in advance of the meetings.
Thank you.
Sorry, I should have said that normally our practice is that where someone's either written in or made comments at the meeting tonight, they would be advised in advance of the matter coming back to council as a courtesy.
So now I do need a motion to reconvene the council meeting. Thank you, Councillor McManaman. All in favor? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is deputations. We don't have any scheduled. And now there is an opportunity for a public question period. Are there any questions from the public this evening for council? Any questions for the council? No questions? We'll move on to item 11, correspondence received for which direction of council is required. There's a letter from April 17th from Maya Malone, Chair of the Manitoulin Island Cycling Advocates, looking for a request for support. Yes, Councillor McMahon.
Your Worship, a question to the clerk, if I might. To staff, I guess I'll say, because it might be one of the directors, the Recreation and Parks Committee dealt with the matter, this matter, I think, several weeks ago. Was this a new request? And I'm not sure who that question is to.
Your Worship, it is a new request. We did write under the mayor's signature a few weeks ago. It did come back or through Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee. Perhaps what we could do, there is a proposed route. It may merit reviewing that route in terms of the city's trails and transportation master plan, just to make sure that it's the optimum route. So perhaps the request could be referred either through operations or through Rec and Parks Advisory Committee.
So I'd make that motion referred to committee, and whichever one is deemed most appropriate by the city manager, that's fine with me. Referred to committee, please.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda items. There's numerous reports and the library board minutes. What's council's direction with the consent? Yes, Councillor Wright.
I would, Your Worship, I would move the consent agenda with the exception of I would like to pull and vote separately on 6212A5, please. I would like to pull that one and vote separately on that. I will move the rest of the consent agenda, that being, that agreement for the senior lacrosse club with the concerns met, and all the rest of it, the business licenses, etc.
Mm-hmm. It also includes the Keystone Kelso Beach.
Right.
Family Fun Day on June 8th, the agreement with them, and then numerous other.
Library minutes and the council package information.
So that's a motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And now we would discuss item 12A5.
I'd like to speak to this one here, and I'm certainly, Councillor, I am not faulting staff whatsoever. The staff is just doing as Council directed a while ago. But this one that is being commented on, that we are asking for information, is 15 kilometers outside of our city. And I have a hard time understanding why a little restaurant in the village of Kotzeff would have any importance to the city of Owen Sound. I think that the township of Georgian Bluffs and the county staff can well look after this to see that it's done properly without any interference from the city of Owen Sound. So I would vote against that one. I would move a motion that that recommendation not be accepted.
So the motion on the floor is not to approve that recommendation. Any speakers?
Motion would be to simply not deal with this recommendation. Well, what would it be? Pardon, or just to receive this report?
Receive the report.
Right.
Okay. The recommendation is asking that the County of Grey ensure the proposal is consistent with the county official plan. That's what the...
And the county will look after that. If this was on our boundary, I could see us, but 15 kilometers in another little community, I think we are really going out of our way to be a little bit obnoxious here.
So any speakers to this motion? Yes, Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. In a perfect world, Councillor Wright, I would agree with your comments, but I could list numerous times when our neighboring municipalities or the County of Grey have not followed the policies that we're asking them to follow here. And I don't know, you're saying 15 kilometers, I don't know what the right distance is, but I suppose if we're being circulated with it by those are the regulations that say we're supposed to be circulated, then we should be circulated. I have no problems with these comments. All it's asking is that the county follow the rules, I guess, basically. And again, I think the reason we need to continue to do these, unfortunately, I agree with you, it's unfortunate, but time after time after time, there are instances where they're not followed. So anyway, in my opinion, that's why they're here. That's why they need to continue to be here and considered. So I guess I'll be voting against the motion.
Any other speakers to the motion?
I would just conclude by saying, I'm quite sure that I'm not sure how we get all this information, but whether it's circulated to us or how we get it. But we do not make good friends by interfering in other people's business, I can tell you that. And this is way outside of our limits, and I just feel that this is what we are doing. I don't think we can be the body to look after all of these things. My goodness, we would be very busy. If we looked after this, then we'd have to look after an awful lot more that are going on in our community, 15 kilometers or more away from the city. So I will be bringing a notice of motion later on in the agenda dealing with some of this stuff, but for now, I'll just put that motion on the floor and see if it passes.
Any other comments? We'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? And I'm also opposed.
It's defeated.
Motion's defeated.
Your Worship, I would therefore move the recommendation as stated.
So we have a motion to move the recommendation as stated. Any comment? All in favor? Opposed? And I'm in favor, so the motion is carried. All right. So, sorry, I'm just moving on now to 12B, reports. We have several reports here. The first one is a report from the city clerk in regards to the appointment of public members to boards and committees. That's from the clerk. It was in regards to the appointment to the DIA.
We don't have quorum.
Oh, we don't have quorum. Oh, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Everybody's leaving, so we have to. So I take a short pause. Thank you. So the short pause will be a 5-minute recess.
Want to mark that in a minute.
Where did everybody go?
too hard to stand up all this time?
Is Peter okay?
Universally get the sponsor for Saturday. There's trucks across the What else can we throw out? I could possibly eavesdrop. You know what's funny?
Did you saw that?
It's great, eh? Really nice.
Look at the back, is the main part.
You're frozen.
Canadians game last night. They had 5 on the bench.
Oh, I know.
You guys keep it up as a hockey game?
Jeff is.
Yeah.
Ask Jeff.
Well, I know what score is. Jeff won't be happy.
Reconvene the meeting. We were at item 12B before the recess on reports. On 12B2, a report from the purchasing agent about attendance. Oh, we didn't finish that?
No.
Oh, thank you.
Can return to that.
I think there was a recommendation, though. Did we didn't vote because we didn't have enough people in the room to vote, right? So the motion again, do you want to read the motion?
Yeah, it's right on your screen.
Oh, there it is, okay.
This is respecting a candidate for a vacancy on the Downtown Improvement Area Board of Management, and we are requesting council to consider appointing the candidate that was identified at the in-camera meeting. We've also identified a few housekeeping issues in the report that we would like to bring forward in that same bylaw amendment.
And the motion was?
Don't have one yet.
We don't have one. Would someone like to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Twaddle. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The next report is the report from the purchasing agents in regards to a tender for supply of granular material. What's council's wish? Yes, Councillor Wright.
I'll move the report.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Report 12B3 is from the community planner in regards to the submission of an appeal from Heritage Grove Centers. Council's direction there. Yes, Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a fairly important decision moving forward. I'm wondering if I could ask the Director of Community Services to just give an overview of a report.
You could have an overview.
Thank you. This is with respect to an application by Villebois Development Corporation on behalf of Heritage Grove Centers, Inc. Council will recall in 2009, these lands were rezoned, and that was after a rigorous planning and market study. In 2012, council received an application that really represented a marked departure from the results of that zoning process. Last June, you received a technical report. We had a public meeting also on June 25th, and throughout, between June and March, there was a lot of back and forth between the city's planning staff, the planner for the applicant, as well as the market experts. As a result, the application last meeting, the application was refused in part by City Council. A portion of the application was actually approved, dealing with a small increase of GFA relating to general merchandise category. There are a number of comments that are made in the appeal by Amber Stewart, and those are addressed in the report in terms of the availability of staff to meet with the application, the notice that was given in terms of the ability to meet, the categorization of store use, and those types of things. This council is required to send a package to the Ontario Municipal Board, and part of that includes this council's position with respect to the appeal. It's our recommendation that in consideration of the two previous reports, the market study and the peer review of that, both versions by Mr. D, that the clerk forward the appeal received in the material required to the Ontario Municipal Board, that council continue to support your decision to amend the minimum lot area requirement and to increase the general merchandise cap on the site, and that council continue to support the decision to refuse the proposed amendments that would add department store as a permitted use, increase the cap for service and retail use, reduce the minimum unit size for retail use, include maximum floor area for all service uses combined, and eliminate individual size restrictions, and add a definition of gross floor area, miscellaneous, and department. Those proposals were simply not consistent with the provincial policy statement with respect to the well-being of downtowns, as well as the city's official plan with respect to the policy test in 4429.
Council's wish with this report? Yes?
Certainly move the recommendation that we defend the appeal.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. The next report is a report for the community planner about a site approval at 285 10th Street West. Yes.
I'll move the recommendation, Councillor.
Councillor Dare. Any discussion on this? Yes, Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to staff. One of the conditions in here is about stormwater management and an oil grit separator. And I just wanted to confirm, because of their on-site stormwater management, or not on-site stormwater management, I guess would be a better way of saying that, they have the option of one or the other, whichever they prefer. The conditions that they state now saying they must make a contribution to our stormwater management fund, I suppose you call it. Anyway, so my first question is about that. Do they have a choice in?
Certainly within the conditions that are explained within the report. Right now, the pavement area is quite small for the parking lot. Makes it difficult to suggest that an oil grit separator on site is required. What we've asked for is a contribution in kind towards a centralized oil grit chamber installation that would be carried forward in future when we do work on our stormwater systems in that vicinity. But the proponent still has the option, if they choose to install an on-site oil grit separator, that they can basically waive that contribution towards the capital cost of a centralized facility.
And if they did make that contribution, it is specific to that area?
It would be specific to the capital contribution to fund those those centralized oil grit separators.
So I guess, for instance, it wouldn't all, if there was an issue with the Kenny Drain, which wouldn't really have anything to do with this catchment area.
I'm not sure how maybe Mr. Ritchie could speak to how those reserves are allocated. This wouldn't be the first time we've taken a contribution in kind towards that. I believe it's set aside in a separate reserve, but.
Could I ask Mr. Ritchie that, and I apologize for this, this is just the first time on a development this small that I'd seen there was a contribution to the stormwater fund, if that's...
If I could, through you, Your Worship, they're not that specific. They wouldn't be by specific project. But when the city funded them, the city would do the funding.
But the intent is a oil grit separator at near the harbor in that area.
Yes, that's correct. Through your worship. The intent would be that, I believe that storm system will probably discharge around the 10th Street Bridge. So at some point in time in the future, when we're able to do future works on the storm sewer along 10th Street, we will look at trying to install some type of oil grit separator in that vicinity. Those funds would be used, and the others that have been collected for that general area would be used to contribute towards that capital improvement.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you very much. Through you, please, to our Manager of Operations. I thought I read in here something about if there was a new lane required to be constructed. Did I read that in here?
The conditions of site plan approval require a 5-meter road widening on 10th Street. Certainly, 10th Street is a major arterial through the city, so the conditions of site plan approval, and you'll see on the plan, very faintly, it shows a 5-meter road widening, so the developer will deed those lands to the city for any future road widening on 10th Street.
Which road? On
So
2nd Avenue or on?
Yeah, so we're at the corner of 10th Street West and
Right.
3rd Avenue, so it's along the 10th Street West frontage only.
On the 10th Street West side, that road, is that going to, that 5-meter road, the whole block or just in front of that?
As development occurs, the city's goal would be to get the widening at the time of development, so that
see.
it's available to the city for future road works.
And so who are we asking that they have to pay for that?
The developer simply has it surveyed and deeds those lands to the city.
Oh, okay. But he doesn't have to pay for the road, okay.
He doesn't
Okay,
have to pay for the road, no.
all right, thank you.
That clarifies that. Any other questions or comments on this motion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Report from the Director of Operations in regards to the County of Grey Draft Transportation Master Plan. With a recommendation that we would, staff would provide in writing comments on the draft, the county's draft transportation master plan. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. On the recommendation, the first part, the second part that says the city cannot support Grey County's draft transportation master plan, I'm just, and I certainly, it's a great report that we have, and I concur with the things that are in that report. However, that part of the motion, because in the report it says, while staff can generally support the strategies that are in the transportation plan, we have real concerns relating to the road and bridge rationalization, which of course we have. And I'm just wondering, by saying we cannot support the draft transportation master plan, if we should add, as it relates to road and bridge rationalization, rather than we can't support the whole report, because there are things in that report that would be good for the city.
The report actually does say there are things that are supported. So are you suggesting
wonder, could we
moving
add-
that, with that addition to the,
Just add that the city cannot support the draft transportation plan as it relates to road and bridge rationalization.
maybe I could ask the Director of Operations to give us a little bit of an overview of this report?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. Just to give a quick summary, the Grey County has been in the process of preparing their draft transportation master plan. They have had some consultations with various staffs at the lower tier municipalities. They've also had a brief presentation to the county council, and they've also engaged in a couple of public information sessions over the course of the last few months, the most recent one being back, I believe, on April 18th. Through the process, I think what the county is trying to do is develop basically strategies towards transportation as a whole. So speaking to Councillor Wright's comments, there are certain aspects of the transportation master plan that are very similar to our own transportation master plan when it comes to terms of active transportation, transit routes, collaboration, partnerships, and so on. One aspect of the transportation master plan focuses on road and bridge rationalization, and they've used the Ontario Good Roads Association road rationalization criteria that were developed, I believe, in 2009. Through that process, they've taken some of those criteria, modified them slightly to maybe tailor them towards a Grey County flavor, and in that process, they've gone through and used those criteria to score the various roads within the county system. Several of the roads within the county system, within the city as well as, not within the city, but outside in some of the municipalities, have not been able to meet the minimum criteria scoring that requires them to stay within the county system, being 6 points. All the roads within the city did exceed that 6-point minimum criteria, but unfortunately, and it's not clearly explained within the documents provided to staff, they have still recommended that roads, the county roads within the city, in particular County Road 5 and County Road 15, be removed and basically brought down to the local road system and not be part of the county road system. And I think from our standpoint as staff is there is really no specific criteria that has driven or given any kind of consideration as to why they're making that recommendation. The report is somewhat silent about that. They will be retaining, based upon the current recommendations, Grey County Road 1, which is essentially 2nd Avenue, north of 10th Street, following along to Eddie Sargent Parkway and 3rd Avenue West. Through that, they intend to keep that road as a county road system, and there's really no rationalization provided within the study that distinguishes between why they're keeping Grey County 1 and not keeping the other Grey County roads within the city limits. That primarily focuses what our comments are. I can briefly go through what some of the comments that we've identified. The first one being that it's silent in terms of the rationale for the exclusion of County Road 5 and County Road 15. One of the modified criteria that they used within the program was to give an extra point to those roads within the county system that have existing or potential truck generating area, but it does not identify how they apply that and what specific points or generating, or points of generation within those road systems that are actually generating that point that they're applied. The public information sessions that they have been what I would not call, or what I believe the city staff and city council wouldn't consider as public consultation sessions. They've been poster board information sessions, not a physical presentation where they're basically asking the community to provide questions and comments and to receive answers. The current mapping within the report is at a scale that doesn't provide detail enough for people who live within the city of Owen Sound to be able to distinguish what are the county roads within the city. We're simply just a isolated point within a large-scale map. One of the concerns, the draft county master plan does consider resort criteria, but it does not distinguish regional destinations such as institutions, such as schools, college, hospitals, major regional attractions and venues such as major sport venues, cultural centers and theaters, regional industry transportation links such as the harbor and the industrial parks, and regional retail and commercial developments. The report is silent on the financial considerations being provided to assist the lower tier municipalities to consider what the implications of any changes to the county master plan and the road rationalization would have on us from a financial standpoint. And certainly we have some concerns that there was some forms of agreement between the city and the county when the city joined the county system back in 2000. So there are some considerations of established agreements in principle that have been put in place that need to be considered. That's, in a nutshell, the comments that have been provided.
Thank you for that overview. I had one question here from Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. I support the recommendation as it stands in the report. Although there are parts of the report that are positive, without the issues that Mr. McRoberts has just outlined being addressed, we can't support the plan, I don't believe. Not too many days ago, we were at the Warden's Forum, and Mr. McKinley repeated many, many times when people were criticizing the plan. He didn't really want to hear it at the Warden's Forum. He made it clear that he wanted council to speak by resolution, and that's what this report is asking us to do. And I just want to echo Mr. McRoberts' comments about the public information center that was held. It was an embarrassment to the county. There was so little information. I attended a meeting in this. It wasn't a meeting, it was an opportunity to look at some poster boards. Not one word of explanation for any of the road rationalization recommendations. They weren't even spelled out in bullet points. You had to compare two maps. And in all of the maps in this report, whether they talk about trails or transit or county roads or county bridges, in all of the maps in this report and all of the maps that were on display, Owen Sound is only an opaque blob. There's no mapping in Owen Sound at all. There was certainly a lot of criticism of this transportation draft report at the Warden's Forum from many municipalities. And I don't support changing the recommendation because the report is a package. And if the issues that we have concerns with are not addressed, then we can't support the report. And the report makes clear that there are parts of the report that the city does like, but I don't think that changes the recommendation. The entire report will go to the county, not just the recommendation.
Yes, Councillor Lemon?
Yes, one of the things, previous meeting, we discussed this arbitrarily removing two city roads with no justification. Did we send a communication to the county asking for an explanation? I thought we were going to. I'm just wondering if we did. We didn't get a letter, we didn't get a letter back though, did we?
At this point in time, we haven't provided any comments. This did go through our Operations Advisory Committee. The direction from the Operations Advisory Committee was for staff to provide or to attend the public information session, which staff did. The other aspect of the resolution was to request the minutes from the steering committee that is coordinating this traffic study, and that is in progress.
We haven't got them yet.
No.
So I'm not sure if we have a motion on the floor. I'll check, but we don't have a motion. Would someone like to make a motion? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Reading the first part of the recommendation, that we are authorizing staff to provide in writing the comments noted within the report. Could I have an explanation about that? Because the report does have the comments in writing. So what are we asking you to do?
I'm asking council to basically authorize me to write a letter to the county planner to basically outline the comments that are listed at the end of the report, comments 1 through 7, to basically provide them as our comments on the draft transportation master plan.
Thank you. So then I think the recommendation should say authorize staff to provide in writing to the county.
Is that the motion you're making then?
And I will make that motion.
And the rest of the recommendation stays the same?
Well, because then we will get something back then that we can deal with.
There was a request from the county for written submissions, so.
I just, you know, you just don't want to throw everything out when there are some positive things in. So if we get it in writing, then maybe we'll get some positive feedback. I will report on all this tomorrow morning at county council, so I just want to make sure that we keep the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff, basically.
Any comment?
Thank you, Councillor Purdon. The warden was very clear at the Warden's Forum the other week that what he, or the county, I guess specifically, are looking for are very specific comments about the draft transportation master plan. And criticism, although he did seem rather reluctant to accept the criticism, I think we have quite a few things to criticize about the report, and certainly the tenure of the meeting from most all the other lower tier municipalities, such as Owen Sound and the rest, was that we all have concerns about this draft master plan, and there needs to be a way for us to input our comments and suggestions. I think this does it, but there are some very good things in that master plan about the movement of tourists, about cycling, and the fact that the county is acknowledging the existence of cycling as something that takes place on county roads is a huge step forward, and I think that we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to deal specifically with those issues that we need to comment on and make sure that the city's best interests are put forward at the county level through this mechanism.
Councillor Adair, is the motion that is on the floor, is that the motion?
I'm speaking in favor of the
You're
motion.
speaking in favor, okay, thank you. And Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. And just to comment, you're right at the Warden's Forum, the Warden was very big on, is this the right process? Didn't really want to talk about specifics, but the process. And my question back, and Councillor Wright, if you want to take this forward, is with the current process, every single road in the city meets the criteria. And I mean that's probably our overwhelming question is every one of our, okay, here's the process. They plugged in the city roads, and every single road is almost double the number of points that they said would meet the criteria. And that's the question we've never had answered. So why are these roads looking to be divested under your criteria? They make the cut. So that's probably the overwhelming question for us. We can't even criticize the criteria. The criteria, gives us 12 points, 13 points, 14 points when only 6 are needed. So that's the question that wasn't answered or still hasn't been answered. So those are just my comments, but I'll be supporting the motion.
Councillor Lemon?
I'm assuming the motion does include the city cannot support the Grey County Draft Transportation Master Plan.
That's what I understand.
It does.
Can I make a suggestion that it be rephrased, the city cannot at this time support? Inference being that if you make some changes, we will support. Because of the good stuff that is in it.
We're into the friendly amendment territory.
Yeah, that's friendly.
Well, we're not supporting it at this time, and we may never support it in the future if it has this road rationalization in it like this, and the bridge, because the bridges are vitally important to us. And so we may never support it if they don't remove road rationalization. But there are things in there that we like, and when I see Mr. McRoberts' letter outlining it, then I can speak to the good things that are in that report that have to do with the city. And so I would rather take it that way to county and be able to talk about the things in there that are good for the city, such as our harbor and our port. I mean, they have supported, the county has definitely supported our harbor and the draining of our harbor, the dredging of our harbor, and those things that were in the report that we do support. So I'd rather speak to those at the county level and let them know that we are supportive of things like that, but definitely not of this road rationalization. So I think the way it says there, Peter, we can do it that way.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so the motion stands without any changes other than the earlier noted one. So are we finished with the conversation? Yes, Councillor Adair.
Just in regards to Councillor McManaman's talking about the criteria, I would suggest that almost all the roads in the city, under the criteria the county has, would qualify as county roads. So how we went from, that is the question, definitely, is where is, we do fit the criteria, so where's the other one that disqualifies our county roads? But
That is outlined in the report.
we probably have more roads in the city that could be county roads, given the criteria that the county has set out.
Yes, Councillor Twaddle.
Well, thank you. And just to Councillor Adair's point, road rationalization would tend to imply that all the roads would be assessed, and some might qualify and move up, and some might not qualify and move down. In fact, very few roads across the county that are not currently county roads were assessed, and no roads within the city that are not currently county roads were assessed. So it really was a superficial rationalization in that sense, that there wasn't a real look at all of the roads and roads that, I mean, in a rationalization, you would assume that roads would move two ways, but there's very little upward movement, and most of the roads across the county and none of the roads in Owen Sound were assessed, except the existing county roads.
Thank you. So, to the motion now, if there's any further discussion, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion's carried. And thank you, Councillor Wright, for taking this report also, or this conversation for the county. So the next report is a report from Engineering Services on recycling, the Recycling Council of Ontario, and the reimbursement agreement. What's Council's wishes? Councillor Adair?
I'll move the recommendation to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a reimbursement agreement with the Recycling Council of Ontario.
Thank you. All in favor? I'm not sure. Councillor Twaddle, Councillor Wright? I think there's another meeting going on over there. So we were, Councillor Twaddle and Councillor Wright, we were voting on the report 12B6. And I didn't see a show of hands, so in favor?
Yep.
Carried. So 12C, minutes of boards and committees for approval. Bylaw Committee, Community Planning and Advisory Committee meetings. Yes, Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the minutes, and if I might speak to one aspect in the operations minutes. I know later Councillor Twaddle's going to mention a public meeting coming up about transit. And just to be clear for anybody reading these minutes or wondering about the discussion, the Operations Committee, our staff are bringing, through the Operations Committee, brought several suggestions from the public meeting, the previous public meeting. The Operations Committee sort of narrowed it down, I suppose, the focus somewhat, and there's 1, 2, 3, about 8 suggestions or ideas that are put out for comment. And I guess I'd just say that some of those were supported by the committee as a whole. Some were more questions for the public. So it's not to say that the committee has made any decisions or any recommendations. These are just ideas that they want to put out and see what the public comment might be. Off-peak hours, or fare increases, or evening service, or 3 routes, any of those, Saturday service, all on the table for discussion. None really necessarily endorsed or not endorsed. It's just bringing it forward. So I just want to be clear on that, because when you read these minutes, you might think the committee was recommending all of these options, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's recommending bringing all these options to the public for consideration before they go any further. So.
There is a public meeting that'll be coming.
And Councillor Twaddle is going to speak to that later. But those are my comments on those minutes, and I will move the balance of the minutes.
Any other comments? Councillor Viera?
Thank you. Councillor Purdon, this is a comment to the clerk. I probably should know this, but procedurally, is there any way we can pass the fireworks bylaw tonight in advance of the 24th of May? We have it here. It's been to committee. It's here in front of us tonight in the minutes. The 24th of May weekend is coming up. I just thought it'd be nice to have a fireworks bylaw in place before then. I know procedurally that might be a little...
Just let the clerk answer that question.
Through you, Councillor Purdon, if you give me about 5 minutes, I can make that happen. You can keep going.
We can keep going. All right. So we have a motion on the floor for the minutes. Councillor Lemon.
I want to speak to something that I found out in respect to transportation. And it was because of a question that I thought about after the meeting. I checked the new regulations under that. The Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act 2005, Ontario Regulation 19111. And in reading that, I found we are not in compliance with certain aspects of that legislation at the present time. The legislation in the regulations in Section 66 speak of equal fares for public transit and specialized transit. We do not have that. Also, the fact that passes must be available. If they're available for public transit, they must be available for specialized. Is there any way before this public meeting we can have some report on that information? The compliance date for those things I spoke of is January 1st, 2013.
I'll turn that to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Lemon. Thank you for your comments on that. Some of those fares have been grandfathered in the past, and as Council will recall, we have been given authority to go out to request a proposal to identify all of the areas where we need to work on accessibility and timing, and putting together a plan on how to address all matters. I'm hesitant, given that, to do a one-off on this one particular matter until we've had that expert review of all of the things that we have to address, and we'll be doing that shortly.
Well, further to that, we are in the process of shortly going to be looking at new buses. And the Accessibility Committee must be by statute involved in that process, as well as a huge number of areas.
Not arguing that at all, Councillor Lemon. I'm just suggesting that if you could let us get the report completed, that we're out now asking for people to submit their proposals, then we can ensure that we do this in a comprehensive and thoughtful, planned manner as we move forward.
My concern is our current non-compliance for obvious reasons.
Fair enough, although we may in fact be grandfathered on that, but obviously we have a lot of work to do in numerous areas regarding accessibility.
Oh. There's a motion on the floor for the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I'm not sure magic there with the the bylaw for the fireworks, which would be, yes, very nice to have in place for the fireworks season. We could go on to 12D, the minutes of the in-camera meeting for approval. Is there someone who'd like to move that? Councillor Adair? Those are the minutes of April 22nd. All in favor? It's carried. And we can move on to the other business and keep things moving. And there's several reports. I think I wrote them all down here. So Councillor Wright had other business in regards to rivers in Harrison Park.
Yes, thank you. I just wonder if I could ask staff, the Harrison Park, the water is coming in rapidly, but it's not going in the rivers, and I just wonder why. And I suspect it's Conservation Authority that is blocking it or something, I don't know, but it sure doesn't look very good. It's the riverbeds are mostly dry and there's an odor, and surely we're not going to have that for the whole summer. I'm just wondering what's going on.
Manager?
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have correspondence from the Conservation Authority indicating they are going to lower the dam. So that should improve the flow.
It should improve?
Yes.
That'd be great.
It's next week. The plan is to close off the dam and the water levels will go up.
Oh, I've had nothing but computer problems for the last 2
The other way,
weeks, so
sorry.
chances are I missed it.
We're going to heighten the dam. Yeah, we're going to have more water.
More water. Close the dam, not lower the dam. It's lowered now. Thank you, Councillor.
Something about the dam is going to happen.
Councillor Twaddle, did you want to speak to the public meeting on transit?
Thank you, yes. As Councillor McManaman pointed out, the Operations Advisory Committee has focused on about 9 recommendations, or not recommendations, but options to be considered at the public meeting as we move forward on transit. Public meeting is at the Bayshore Community Center on next Wednesday afternoon, the 15th, starting at 4 o'clock, with an opportunity for members of the public to view the options on poster boards, followed by a presentation and a question and comment period from the public. As Councillor McManaman pointed out, the committee kind of narrowed or grouped a number of possible recommendations, hasn't endorsed or supported any of them, just chosen which ones to bring forward for discussion by the public, and we look forward to having the public there. The meeting is timed to end at 5:30 so that anyone who depends on public transit will be able to get a bus and get home before the buses finish their route. So I encourage everyone. We had a good turnout at the council meeting, the special council meeting a few weeks ago at the library. I would encourage everyone who has an interest in transit to come out, see what the options are that are being presented, and help us with their comments and their suggestions.
Thank you, Councillor Twaddle. And yes, for anyone watching tonight, we're really looking forward to a good turnout for the public meeting, and it's good that it's happening. And thank you to the Operations Committee for moving all that along. You had a second business item?
I did, and there's been a lot of discussion over the years around the creation of more public art in the community, and I think with the starting to move forward on the Downtown River Precinct project, that's one area where there is an identified need for public art. I'm just going to ask council if they would refer to Community Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee a request to examine ways in which we could encourage and promote public art through some of the various programs that already exist, through site plan approvals, through community improvement plan, through development charges, to look at opportunities to either encourage developers to include public art in their developments, or to find a way to make contributions to a public art program. This is not a high priority item, but I think it's something I would like to see begin to move forward, and, perhaps as we proceed towards the 2014 budget, there may be an opportunity to at least look at what avenues could be considered in order to create a policy and perhaps start to develop a public fund for public art.
Councillor Twala, that's a recommendation
That would be a motion that we ask staff to report through the Community Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee.
Yes, Councillor Lemon? Oh, sorry, Councillor Dare was first.
Councilor Lemon can go first.
Sure.
Well, the art and public space regulations was developed by the Culture Committee. And I think certainly there should be input from community planning, but I think that there should, Culture Committee might be a vehicle to carry that forward as well. So I don't know how you include that, I'm not sure.
Well, if I may, Councillor Purdon, I appreciate that work has been done. The tools that I'm looking at developing would be largely planning and development tools. Certainly, the Culture Committee will be involved, but I see in developing the tools for this, not necessarily the art, but in developing the tools to deal with this, since most of them are planning and development instruments, I think that it rightly belongs there as the lead committee, but certainly there would be consultation with any of the other committees that would have a role in this.
Councillor Dare.
Thank you, Councillor Purdon. I was just going to say that we do have a public art policy, but it is around what the art looks like and where it's located and how it gets there. I would be very excited if we had sort of fees and charges around, you're making a big development. We do ask people to set aside land for parkland. As we move forward, I think this is a very exciting idea, but the public art policy deals with what the art might be and some criteria around how that would fit into its local surroundings, etc., but does not deal in any way with fees, charges, or setting aside money, or even if someone wanted to donate art, the policy would speak to what art we might accept, but not to the donation itself. So I think they're two very related things, but they're two different things. So I look forward to seeing where this goes.
Okay, any other discussion on this motion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Twaddle. Councillor Lemon, you had other business, OSAM.
Well, first of all, I wanted to speak to OSAM, which was very successful. It was learned a lot, and which I'll bring more on back later, but the Premier of Ontario made a very, very good speech in which she said, and we should hold it to it, that in the current expansion of monies for infrastructure, they recognized that some municipalities were excluded because of size. And she indicated at that meeting that that was something that they recognized. So we've got to watch that very carefully to make sure we do get funding. The other point, after the meeting, after the awesome presentation, I was able to have a private meeting with the Premier about the water levels and pushing on Ottawa, and she agreed that the province had a role there. and I'm expecting to hear something back on what that's going to be. So I'll keep council informed, but I was very pleased with the positive response I got from her on that issue, because that is a catastrophic issue for our area. And she certainly recognized it and was knowledgeable about it. And the other item I already brought up under the other item on the disabilities and the nonconformance.
Thank you very much. I had an additional item, just reminding everyone that on Thursday, May 9th, at the Bay Shore, there's going to be a forum on welcoming communities. Everyone's invited from the city and any of our listeners. It's a forum to look at how we can be a community that's going to attract and retain newcomers. It's a community discussion. We'll have a panel, and it's been organized by a community group. So just would really encourage people to attend. I think I have talked about it before. And there is a report from the city manager. Yes.
I guess there is a report from the city manager. You're right, but it's in relation.
First, Councillor Adair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Purdon. It is in relation to bringing the administration of parking back to, and it's up there on the board, that update on parking and bylaw enforcement responsibilities provided by the city manager, which I believe she's providing those to me at this moment. Council approved the transfer of parking ticket payments and the associated administrative duties to City Hall starting June 1st of this year, and that Council authorized staff to continue investigating options for the delivery of parking and bylaw enforcement duties for the City of Owen Sound. And I believe we actually need to do this part before the 1st of June. So that's my motion.
Any discussion on this motion? Did the city manager want to speak to this at all? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. I think that was it for the other business. I'll have a motion that the committee rise and report.
Actually, Councillor Purdon, I believe, is... We can? Okay, I will move the committee rise and report.
Thank you, Councillor Dare. A resolution adopting proceedings in the committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be hereby confirmed by this council.
So all in favor?
Do I have another number?
Carried. Notices of motion. Councillor Wright.
Yes, I have a notice of motion here that Owen Sound Council requests the Planning Department to bring report or comment only on applications that have a direct impact on the City of Owen Sound.
We don't vote on that, it's a notice of motion, right? Thank you. New business by resolution? None. Bylaws, and at this time we will address two bylaws the clerk has prepared.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Further to the request from Councillor Adair to speed up the process by which we pass the bylaw for the fireworks bylaw, we would need to pass two bylaws, additional bylaws this evening. One would be bylaw number 2013-089, which would be a bylaw to regulate the sale and use of fireworks and explosives in the City of Owen Sound, and that would be the draft regulatory bylaw that has been through committee and that you've seen this evening. The second bylaw will be a bylaw related to that for an administrative purpose. It hasn't been drafted yet, but we can pass it this evening and do that in an expeditious manner tomorrow morning. This would be bylaw number 2013-090, and this would be a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw, which is number 2013-029, and that would be to remove the fireworks vendor license fee, if that's council's wish.
Was that council's wish? Proceed, yes, Councillor Lemon? I'm voting that it is our wish. Oh, all right, okay. Don't we need you have the motion, yes.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright, that bylaw numbers 2003, 083, 084, 085, 086, 087, 088, 089, and 90 be hereby passed and enacted.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think we're adjourned.
Thanks.